How badly do you want God? The key verse is John 6, verse 35. He that cometh to me shall never hunger, for he that believeth on me shall never thirst. Blessed are they which do hunger and thirst after righteousness, for they shall be filled. Hunger and thirst are physical sensations which, in their acute stages, may become real pain. It has been the experience of countless seekers after God that when their desires become a pain, they are suddenly and wonderfully filled. The problem is not to persuade God to fill us, but to want God sufficiently to permit Him to do so. The average Christian is so cold and so contented with his wretched condition that there is no vacuum of desire into which the blessed Spirit can rush in satisfying fullness. Child of the kingdom, be filled with the Spirit. Nothing but fullness thy longing can meet. It's the endowment of life for life and for service. Thine is a promise, so certain, so sweet. I will pour water on him who is thirsty. I will pour floods upon the dry ground. Open your heart for the gift I am bringing. While ye are seeking me, I will be found. Today's passage is, very interesting. I was thinking of this word thirst. So, if we under how do we understand the term thirst? Just looking at a little bit of primary school science. In Joel's textbook, they mentioned that three-fourth of our body is actually water, and water is quite essential for all the enzymatic actions which takes place in the body. And without it, even whatever food that we consume cannot be utilized. And that's the significance of water in the body. And the way that God has wonderfully created our body is our nervous system can actually sense the lack of that water and create this craving in all the parts of our body that a man actually will thirst for it to the extent of what we describe as it, that longing becomes a sense of pain. And they do everything to actually quench that longing for that particular essential element which is needed for the body. So, how do we define thirst? Thirst is a sense of awareness of a lack of something, and the lack in this human body we consider as lack of sense of having water. So, that's a conscious sense of awareness of a lack of something. That is thirst. Now, if we look at when a man is thirsty, when we get thirsty, we don't just quietly just sit down in one corner and say, "Oh, I am thirsty," and just sit. But anyone or any living being who's thirsty, whether it's an animal or a man, we'd actually do something actively to quench that thirst. Go around looking for water. No, the so that is an action which comes automatically when there is an awareness of that lack and that lack of something which is quite essential for the body to grow and to even survive. So that is an action which comes automatically, provided there is an awareness in the body. Now, so the same way the Bible actually talks about that spiritual awareness of that void within us, of that void of not having that something which is essential for the growth and survival of our spiritual body. No, so that when we actually recognize that there is something missing, when that void is there, when and we actually can sense that that is a thirst for righteousness, thirst for the Spirit of God. And God says that Bible says that when you actually hunger and thirst for me, no, you will find me, and we will be there to quench that thirst, to find, no, to fill us not to the extent of just full, but to fill us to the extent to overflow. Now, I like that line which says in that few verses of that poem which is given below that I will pour water on him who's thirsty, and I'll pour floods upon the dry ground. So when we realize that we are dry, and we have that sense of longing, and if you look at that, when you say a dry ground, you could just remember the desert lands, the parched grounds. It's like longing for water. The so that's it's when that is the condition, and we recognize that that is a condition of our heart. God says that I will flood your spirit. I will no, I will pour, and I'll pour in abundance, to the extent that the land will not want anymore. To the extent that you will be quenched and that water will never dry up. that you will overflow. There'll be abundance in that. That is the promise that we have from God. And another analogy here, just for me, I was just thinking is, when we have a dry ground and you pour water, I always like that smell of rain. When the land is dry and hot, and there is this little shower of rain which comes in, even before you notice the rain, we actually can smell the rain, smell the smell the wet ground. And I for one, I mean, I somehow find that smell very nice, very pleasant. For very dry weather, that smells, it's very nice. So I think that is the same aroma which we get, when we are filled with the Holy Spirit, and when we quench for, when we are thirsty, and God quenches our desire to know Him, and He fills us with the knowledge of Him. And in that abundance of getting filled by Him, we actually have that aroma which spreads out from us. And even before, even before you can open the window and see the rain on the ground, we actually can smell it before that. So similarly, I suppose that even when we are filled by the Spirit, the people around us will actually be able to sense that aroma in us. They will be able to feel it. They will know. They will know that the living God dwells in us. That's something which I found was really beautiful to understand. And just to end with one verse, uh, so it says in First Corinthians that this is not something that we are talking about a physical sense of water and bread, and of thirst and hunger, but it's more of the spiritual sense of water and thirst and hunger. So God says in First Corinthians 10:3-4 that all ate the same spiritual food, and drank the same spiritual drink, for they were drinking from a spiritual rock which flowed down, and the rock was Christ. So it's basically from Christ, and when we have that desire to be actually filled, and He says that He will fill, He will quench the land, He will make sure that there is overflowing, and that there is an aroma which comes out of it, and He will never let a person who is wanting something go away from Him, longing for it still. He's a God who promises that He will be there. In Psalm 23, it says that I will lead you to quiet waters, to green pastures and still waters. Someone was sharing a couple of, I think last year or sometime, that the terrain in which Psalm 23 was written. It's in a place where it was a desert land, a land where water is very sparse, and people, and the shepherds and the sheep, they'll have to walk long distances to find that little bit of water. And even grass will be like, just scattered here and there, little bit. I mean, if we have to imagine that a rocky terrain with just grass growing here and there, but in the midst of that terrain is what God gives this picture of, this beautiful lush green pastures, and one big stream of quiet waters. That is a picture which is so contrary to the reality of that dry land, but that is what God promises us, something more than what your mind can imagine, something more than what we can even think of. That is the quietness, that is the fulfillment, that is what God can provide. And but it takes a dry land, it takes a sense of longing to actually get there. And God promises that He will lead us to that, He will provide. Anyone else has anything to add on, please do.